Trey McBride was the number 3 tight end per game with 2 touchdowns on 147 targets. Travis Kelce was the number 7 tight end per game with 3 touchdowns on 133 targets. And then you got Mark Andrews, number 8 tight end per game in full PPR with 11 touchdowns, which led the position, blew away everyone else on only 69 targets. That is insane. All right, Heath, break it down. Who's got the most regression coming? McBride, Kelce, Andrews.
I think McBride definitely has the most regression coming, but also it may be the least interesting because everybody knows it and everybody's hoping for it and everybody's drafting him like it's definitely going to happen. And so you could tell me that some people have been concerned about McBride because Marvin Harrison's going to take a step forward. I think there's absolutely room for Trey McBride to lose a target per game, take 17 targets away, and he makes up for that with touchdowns, even if he still has a low touchdown rate. You don't generally project anybody for lower than a 4% touchdown rate at the tight end position, and his was way lower than that. So wouldn't be surprised if he triples his touchdowns from last year to make up for any lost targets to Harrison. I think Kelce's the most interesting because everybody's worried about the decline. And it's that number you said that it's so important is 133 targets. Yeah. Like he was bad. He was bad in terms of efficiency. And still the only reason he wasn't a top 4 tight end is because of some crazy bad touchdown luck.
Was it bad touchdown luck? He got fewer end zone targets. He doesn't do anything after the catch. I mean, I'm sure it was a little bit of bad touchdown luck, but also was it just he's not that good anymore? I think that's what the fact that he really saw a huge drop in his yak. We're talking about Travis Kelce here. Uh-huh. And his explosive play rate was 11% last year, explosive plays per target. In his prime, Travis Kelce's explosive play rate was regularly over 22%. So we are talking about a guy who is making plays, explosive plays, half as frequently now. So was that a reason for it? Or was it just bad luck? I look at the fewer end zone targets. I look at just less playmaking ability and thinking he's, maybe just not going to be reliable for touchdowns. I don't know.
Well, I think it's instructive to talk about your favorite player. He had 10 more targets than Tyreek Hill last year. Their yak was basically the same, which is really tells you something about Tyreek Hill.
No, because Tyreek Hill's ADOT was probably double Kelce's.
Their yak was basically the same, and Tyreek Hill scored twice as many touchdowns.
Yeah, okay. Yak and ADOT have got to be mentioned together. Kelce's ADOT was 6.6 yards, I think. I'm guessing Tyreek's was about 12.
11.
Okay, that's a huge difference there.
But the year before, Kelce was at 5, and Tyreek was at 5.5. So they saw a similar drop in their yak.
But okay. Yeah, but Tyreek was just hurt. He's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect from Kelce. I mean, the targets, he barely played with Rice, right? Remember how bad he was the first 3 weeks with Rashee Rice on the field? How many targets did he get those weeks? 4, 3, and 5. After that, 19 targets in his next 2 games with Rashee Rice hurt, right? So I think that's another thing to think about here is if Rice is healthy and Worthy is taking the next step, what are we looking at for Travis Kelce? Yikes.
But also is the game plan the same? Get to the end of the season, then start to ramp him up a little bit, as we saw going into the playoffs, with the hope that it's another Super Bowl run and he can, get his ring again and maybe then call it quits. But I think just based on who he has been, who he's still playing with, and the group of tight ends that you're talking about that are getting drafted around him, like that's what you're banking on. You're still banking on his and this is name over game, which I hate. But this is really what you're looking at here. And, like, I think he should go after Njoku. I don't know if ADP will reflect that. It doesn't.
It's not.
It doesn't go that way in best ball draft so far. Like, you can see the flaws for Andrews, which I'm sure we'll talk about. You could see the flaws for Jonnu Smith. You talked about this, Adam, that, one year wonder maybe of what his, late career breakout.
Maybe.
These Tucker Kraft has never done it to this level, so whatever tight ends you're sort of putting in this range, after really like tight end 6 or so, then he's worth the gamble. But I think you just have to understand, like, it's been 2 years of him not being that type of guy. 2 years ago, he was still really good. Last year, he really fell off a cliff. And if Rice is back to 100%, if Worthy is as legit as he showed at the end of the season, if Marquise Brown is a factor after what, not really having an impact at all last year, like this could be a target crunch for Kelce, which he's never seen.
Yeah. Additionally, here are the end zone target leaders for the Chiefs last year. Number 1 was DeAndre Hopkins with 8. That's wild. Worthy with 8. Noah Gray with 6. Travis Kelce with 5. And here's their pass rate rank from inside the 5-yard line over the last 5 seasons. The Chiefs were 3rd, then 9th, then 3rd, then 5th. Last year they were 14th. And then Heath, I wonder how do you combine this Kelce low touchdown rate with also Mahomes, right? Like it's not like Mahomes had a low touchdown rate the last 2 years at 4.5%, but for him, those are by far the lowest of his career.
Yeah, and I don't think that Patrick Mahomes is washed. So I would expect some, like we expected regression last year. We didn't get it. I think Dave's going to talk about it later. We expect regression from Mahomes again this year. We expect him to be better than he was in terms of yards, and I would say in terms of touchdowns than he's been the last 2 years. And that will be a part of Travis Kelce scoring more touchdowns if he does. I think the concerns you guys brought up about targets and if Rice and if Worthy, those are all really valid. They're just like, what we're looking at is what the guy did on the opportunity he had and kind of assuming the opportunity is going to stay relatively the same without somebody important being added to the mix. Maybe Rice will be 100% and not suspended, and maybe Worthy will continue what he did without Rice at the end of the year.
And it's also could be those guys opening up just easier paths
Right.
to success for Kelce, because now you have so many different ways to hurt defenses that, okay, the 36-year-old tight end is not going to be the problem. It's more the speed on the outside and what Rice is doing maybe in the middle of the field as well. So while he may lose some targets, he may benefit just based on, not as much bracket coverage and, teams just really trying to take him away because they know how much he means to Mahomes.
He'll never be double teamed if Rice and Worthy become even more established in the Chiefs offense. Defenses won't be scared by Kelce. Kelce will be Mahomes' second read on every single third down and red zone play at worst. So I think he still sees a good amount of targets. Let's not forget that like last year, he totally sucked. No one was happy with him. Still averaged 12.2 PPR points per game, which for a tight end is pretty damn good.
Still better than Sam Laporta.
Which is crazy, but also factual.
My biggest issue, I think, is those first 3 games and the fact that he just wasn't being targeted when Rashee Rice was on the field. It's easy to forget about those, but man, this is sometimes you wonder, is this guy in decline? I'm not sure.
He is.
It's so clear, right?
Yeah, he can't run anymore.
It's just at a position where 12 or 13 fantasy points is still really good.
Right.
You're talking about a guy that's declined from 18 to 20 fantasy points or 17 to 19 fantasy points, whatever it was.
Right.
It's
It's just
just what his
perspective.
ADP is so far.
Did we want to talk about Mark Andrews with 69 targets and 11 touchdowns in 17 games? And he was tight end 6th per game in non-PPR, 7th per game in half PPR, and 8th per game in full PPR. And that was actually a bad season for Mark Andrews, who had been top 5 per game in PPR in 5 straight seasons before finishing 8th last year. Heath, are you optimistic for Mark Andrews?
No, not at all. I'm faking my ranking to make up for the fact that he comes out as tight end 16 in the projections.
Oh, what is your ranking?
10 or 11. I'd much rather draft Kelce.
I would too.
Jamie, Kelce, or Andrews?
Oh, Kelce.
Okay.
I'd rather draft Hawkinson. I'd rather draft Tucker Kraft.
I've got 2 rookies ahead of Mark Andrews. That might be a little too far, but I'm worried about his touchdowns coming down, his volume not rebounding. We know how a lot of the other touchdowns in Baltimore were scored last year. I don't think Derrick Henry is being written out of the game plan whatsoever. So is Mark Andrews going to score a ton of touchdowns like he did last year? I'm going to bet against that.
I kind of view Andrews the way you view Cook, Adam, though, like top pass catcher on a great offense. And
but he's not the top pass catcher.
Well, I'm not saying he's the top pass, a top pass catcher.
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah.
On a great offense. And Heath talked about this maybe a month or so ago about, just like who Mark Andrews has been. And, like, again, when you look at this position, think about some of the names that we just said. Like Dave said, the 2 rookies, they could easily be better than him. I mean, there's so much potential for those guys, but there's so many ifs for them as well, and what rookie tight ends have done. And so when you start to get into that jumbled mix, like we're hoping for Tucker Kraft to take a step forward. And I think a lot of it's for him to do that. It's probably going to be scoring more touchdowns. Well, we know what this offense has been in Green Bay in terms of the lack of targets for everybody and so many mouths to feed. And they just drafted 2 guys in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft that are probably going to have some opportunities. And maybe Christian Watson comes back sooner than we think, So it's just this group of tight ends. Like Andrews, the car accident, we don't know how much that played a factor in the beginning part of the season. Then the second half of the season, he took off, but played a bigger role and had certainly more production. A lot of it again being the touchdowns. But how much of it is what Harbaugh has said this offseason when the thought was they might get rid of him, and maybe likely has a big role. And all these things could change. And Hopkins being there, that could certainly take away some touchdowns as well, based on what he's done. But we're asking that from a 30-plus-year-old receiver also. So I think Lamar Jackson really relies on Mark Andrews quite a bit and relies on him in the red zone. We know that as much as Jackson runs, he does not run near the goal line as much as some of these other running quarterbacks, Justin Fields in particular. I just think that there's still an opportunity for him to get more chances and still be an 8+ touchdown guy. And so when you get to the back half of the tight end, the top 10 tight ends, he still belongs there, in my opinion.
And to Dave's point of what he said about Kelce and Mahomes being tied together with the touchdown rate.
Yeah.
That's definitely the case with Lamar Jackson. His 6 seasons as a starter, 9% when he won the MVP back in 2019, 6.9, 4.2, 5.2, 5.3, and then back up to 8.6 last year. Lamar is definitely a passing touchdown regression guy too.
Oh man. How did he not win the MVP last year? Unbelievable.
He was definitely,
It was rough
because it was just a makeup. People recognized that maybe they should have given it to Allen the year before, so they gave it to Allen this year to make up for it.
The premise of Josh Allen should have won the MVP in 2023 is so silly. He was one of the reasons why his offensive coordinator got fired, because he threw so many interceptions. And you're telling me he should have won the MVP?
I would just like for Matt Weber to recognize, I'm not saying this, Adamus. So,
I love Josh Allen. I might be the only. Does anybody have him as QB1?
I do. Okay,
I do too. I love Josh Allen, but he did not deserve the MVP last year. Lamar Jackson should be a 3-time MVP winner. It was ridiculous. And what was he the first one? Was he the first one ever to win the AP, like whatever it was, like
I believe you're right. Yes.
And not win the MVP, which is the same exact voters, I believe, vote for the 2 awards. And he won the one that was like a few weeks before, and he didn't win the MVP. It was so stupid.
It is pretty interesting that probably our 2 most active members in the chat, one's a Ravens fan and one's a Bills fan.
Is that right?
Well, Popinski and Matt.
Adam, finally right. Thank you, Mr. Popinski. Appreciate that. Mr. Popinski, so named after Soda Popinski of Punch-Out. I don't know how. One of the best things I've ever done, one of my crowning achievements, is beating Mike Tyson in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I tried again a few weeks ago against like Mr. Dream, because I don't have Punch-Out, but it's the same guy as Mike Tyson. I don't have the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. It is impossible. I mean, that is like, video games used to be so hard. It's really difficult. I don't know how I did it, but I'm happy I did. Okay.